at this point, we have quite a bit of knowledge about Wi-Fi networks and how they can be scanned for and how to look for things like channel overlap, which causes interference and intermittent connectivity. But what about actually breaking into a wireless network? Now, first of all, never do this on a network that you don't own or that you don't have written consent from the system owner, because you're breaking the law. If something is encrypted, a wireless network is encrypted, there is an intent of privacy. And if you intentionally break into that, you are obviously violating that privacy. You're breaking the law. So don't do that. It's just not worth it. So what I've got here is my own wireless network that I'm going to show you how we can crack a WPA2 password. All we're really doing here is you can consider it kind of like being a dictionary attack, but not for a user account. I want to figure out what the pre-shared key, the PSK, is for my WPA2 network. So how do we do that? Let's talk about it. First of all, we're going to be using disassociation or deauthentication as a mechanism. We talked about that recently. Essentially what that means is we take an existing wireless client that's actively connected to the network and we kick them off. Now you might say, why would you do that? That's not nice. Because I want to force them to re-authenticate, and that's the traffic I'm going to capture. Because I need to see exactly what's happening during the authentication in order to crack the pre-shared key, you see. So that's what we're talking about. So in step one, what do we have to do to crack a WPA2 PSK passphrase? We need to discover access points. We need to know the access point MAC address, otherwise called the BSSID, but we also need to know what channel it's listening on. You can find that out very easily, as you'll see. Number two, the next thing we have to do is make sure there's at least one connected client, or if we're lucky, we'll see a client connecting as we're capturing traffic. But one way or another, we have to capture wireless traffic when a client is authenticating. So what we're going to do is we're going to kick someone off the network. It's going to force them to re-authenticate automatically. Then we'll capture that. That's step two. Now, what we have to watch for is the MAC address of the client device connected to the wireless network. So far, we need the MAC address of the access point. We need the channel it's listening on, and we also need the MAC address of a client that can authenticate to that wireless network. You'll see why that's relevant very shortly, but we do need it. So in step three, how do you kick someone off a wireless network? How do you de-authenticate them? Well, there are many different tools and many different ways to do it, but the way I'm going to show you is by using a command in Kali Linux called air replay-ng. Now, essentially what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be specifying the access point MAC as well as the client MAC address, and I want to be able to capture that traffic, which is in the following step. I want to de-authenticate them. It'll automatically re-authenticate, their device will, to the Wi-Fi network. I want to capture that traffic. That's step four. And what I'm looking for in this particular case, because we want to crack WPA2, is I want the WPA2 handshake. It's actually going to say that on the screen. I'll show you after. Then what I can do is I can perform either an online or an offline dictionary or brute force attack. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a file, a text file, with a bunch of common passphrases, and I'm going to apply that against my captured traffic, where I captured a user authenticating to Wi-Fi, and given those items, and given I've got enough traffic, I'm going to be able to crack that passphrase. That's what we're going to do. Sounds exciting, right? Let's do it. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to discover access points near me. I need to discover the MAC address of it and the channel it's listening on, and of course, clients that are connected to it. How do we do that? Well, in Kali Linux, I'm going to run sudo, and I'm going to run the arrow dump command. Now, the arrow dump command allows me to see wireless networks that are close to me physically. So I'm saying sudo arrow dump-ng WLAN 0. That's my wireless network interface. It's asking me for my password, current user password, because it's the first time I ran sudo. Now, if you take a look at what's on the screen, what do we need from this? Well, we need, first of all, to identify the MAC address for the wireless network that we want to try to crack the WPA passphrase for. Over to the right, I'm starting to see the names of the wireless networks. My screen resolution is set so that I can't see the entire name. But realistically, you'll be able to see the name. You'll be able to map that to the BSSID or the MAC address for that wireless network. The other thing you need to look at here is you need to look at the channel that it's listening on. So the channel is under the CH column. Finally, the other thing you need to do is you need to be able to see connected clients at the very bottom. Now, if no users are connected to that wireless network, you're not going to see anyone connected at the very bottom. But when they do connect, they'll show up. So sometimes it's a waiting game. If you can't control that environment, you might have to wait until a client device connects. So as clients start to connect, they're going to show up down at the bottom of the screen, and I need to take note of their MAC address. Now, the next thing I need to do is open up a second terminal window to my Linux host because I want to keep that other thing running for now. What I'm going to do in this one is I'm going to run the arrow-dump-ng command. Now, that has to be all lowercase letters, so I'll change that. But what I'm going to pass it this time is -BSSID. Now, that should be -- 2 dashes in that parameter. And then I follow that with the MAC address that I noted for the access point whose WPA2 passphrase I want to crack. Following that, I'll use -C, lowercase c. Now, what's that for? The channel. So if my wireless network, for instance, is listening on channel 153, I would put in 153. Next thing I'll do is use --write, as in WRITE, because I want to write to a packet capture file. And I'm specifying that I'm calling it WPA, and I want that to be captured through my network interface, which I'm going to specify here as WLAN 0. So what are we doing? We are capturing network traffic because we want to be able to watch devices when they re-authenticate. So we haven't kicked anyone off the network yet. That's going to follow next. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Now, if you get a message that says it requires root privileges, it's because you forgot to put sudo at the beginning of it, like I just did. That's easily remedied. So I'll put sudo in front of it, and it's on its way. So what we want to do then is keep our eye in the upper right until we see that it has captured the WPA handshake, specifically WPA2 handshake. Once it's done that, we're ready to start trying to crack the password. So now in another terminal window, I need to de-authenticate a client that was connected to that Wi-Fi network. Because again, we're capturing traffic right now. I need to capture that WPA2 handshake. So to de-authenticate an existing client, I would have to know the MAC address, which I do. The command in Linux is going to be sudo airreplay-ng. The interface is WLAN 0. Then I've got a couple of parameters where I'm specifying things like the MAC address of the access point and then the client MAC address that I want to de-authenticate. Remember, de-authenticating a client will force it to re-authenticate, and that's what I need to see. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter to run that command. So now that we've captured the WPA2 handshake, let's take a look at a couple of files here in Kali Linux. I'm going to type ls, and I've got a file I've created here called common_passwords.txt. What I want to do is I'm going to compare my list of passwords against that WPA2 handshake to see if there's a match. So we can also use word lists that are available in Kali Linux or download dictionaries of medical terms or any source at all. So if I cat the common_passwords.txt file that I created, it's only got 4 entries. Now, I know what the password for my Wi-Fi network is, so one of those is going to be the password. You're going to have to wait just a moment to find out which one. Now, at the same time, I've also got a capture file here called WPA-06.cap. That is what contains the WPA2 handshake. So let's put it all together and let's crack this password. So I'm going to clear the screen with clear. I'm going to run aircrack-ng. This is a tool built into Kali Linux. I'm going to specify the name of my capture file, so WPA-06.cap, then a -w for my word list. I'm just going to give it the name of my common passwords.txt file. Let's see what happens when we press enter. Well, it immediately says key found. So you don't have to wait anymore. Now you can see the password or the passphrase for my Wi-Fi network. So I now know the name of the Wi-Fi network. We can find that by just scanning. You can do that on your smartphone. But we can also now authenticate to it legitimately with the WPA2 PSK or pre-shared key.